Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park, and we have an amazing episode for you this week.
Wow.
Sorry, I just cut you off.
So excited. It's okay. I'm used to it. I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I always say, well, because I think it's funny, Brian, because we cut each other off a lot, and I say it's because we're fire signs, but maybe it's just because we're fucking Korean.
Maybe.
We don't have any patience. We don't want to wait in line. Pali.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's racist against my own people. I don't know why I said that. If you're not Korean, don't believe that. That was a joke.
Oh, I was
Koreans
just going
are very
to say
good at waiting
that
patiently.
we should have one of those those bells that they put in Korean restaurants at the table. We should click it for when we want to speak.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Like ding dong, Brian. No. Every bell in Korea always has that the fleur de lis. Do you notice that? Like in Korea, when the trucks back up, instead of beep,
yes,
beep, it's it goes faster. Like the closer you get to the truck. It's so there's such music nerds over there.
So for the non-Korean listeners who are listening, if you didn't know, Koreans, we are a very melodic culture.
We love classical European music. So if I want to interrupt you, Brian, I'm just gonna go like that, and then you'll know I want to say something.
And then for this episode, if I look at the analytics, I'll be like, wow, the people seem to tune out after 10% of the episode. I wonder what's going on here. It's just us being supremely annoying with our a cappella classical music.
Oh, stop.
I did that because I want to introduce our guest this week.
I wasn't even talking. What are you doing, Brian? You're like, my turn. I wasn't even talking, Brian.
We've established.
Why are you interrupting me?
I am a man.
I was breathing.
And I will interrupt you with the noise sound that we've established to avoid this problem. It's part of my DNA. I can't help myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's introduce our guest before there's too many of the fleur de lis interruptions.
Okay, well, listeners, just a heads up. Our guest requested that to make her intro very chill because I pulled her bio. I pulled her introduction from her bio, and the first sentence on our website says, Elizabeth Ito is a 15-year veteran of the animation industry. And when you have 15 years under your belt, there's a lot of accolades there. So this is my attempt to make it as chill as possible. So you know your favorite animated shows like Adventure Time, SpongeBob SquarePants,
wow.
Hotel Transylvania. Yeah.
Wow.
She's involved. She's a big hitter in the industry, and she's been involved in creating those hits. But she is also the creator of the Peabody Award-winning series City of Ghosts on Netflix. Listeners, give your ears for Elizabeth Ito.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show. This is really cool.
How was that?
We're so happy to have you.
Was that a chill intro? I don't know. Was that pretty chill?
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, thank you. I'm so proud of myself.
Those are like some very iconic shows that you've worked on.
Yeah, that.
Some of them are really surprisingly they became iconic. Like I think when I was working on Hotel Transylvania, I didn't even know if we were gonna finish it. So
really,
I'm glad it's popular. Yeah.
Wow.
I love those movies. I'm a big fan of Hotel because I'm like a secret goth. I feel like in my soul.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I love those movies. I really love because I have an 8-year-old son, and sometimes he'll watch some of those shows, and I'm like, oh, I fucking hate this. But some of them are really good. Adventure Time, SpongeBob,
so good.
Hotel Transylvania, those are among my favorites.
With shows like Adventure Time and SpongeBob SquarePants, I think we all understand that there is a signature, wackiness, that there's a certain flavor to it that is very unique to those shows. At the offices of those shows and the people who write on those shows are involved in the show in some capacity, are they equally as wacky / strange?
I mean, I think SpongeBob was. I wasn't really like so involved with the TV show, but I knew a lot of the people that worked on it, like the very first SpongeBob stuff. And there were a lot of shenanigans, I think, on that show.
I love it.
Adventure Time, like, you would be pretty surprised, I think. I feel like that crew was a lot quieter, maybe just like wackier on the inside.
Okay.
Which kind of like...
Yeah, I was I'm so interested to understand the flavor of like all of the writers' rooms for these shows. And when I was yeah, like I was just gonna mention the show Ren and Stimpy. Like I saw that when I was very young, extremely traumatic, way too young to be watching a show like that. It is a very creepy show. And then I think like a few years ago, I read some Reddit thread where like the animator and creator of the show is also just a total weirdo, and there were some interesting allegations, and I'm like, okay, kind of checks out because that show has a has a vibe
interesting what are the allegations?
Just
it was a lot of I mean, like, just to be simple about it, I think like when Me Too was in full force, that was one of the like, just, it's not even gossip, it's just stuff that you knew happened with that guy, where you were like, when's that one gonna drop? Because
right
everybody kind of, I mean, it's like all of the stories, like everybody sort of knew about that particular person.
Oh, okay. So it's an open secret in the industry.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not surprising.
Didn't even feel like a secret. It kind of felt like, why hasn't that come up yet? Before even Me Too, I was just sort of like, this doesn't seem okay. But like, I don't have the power to do much about it. I don't know.
Right. Well,
nobody was surprised by that.
But Elizabeth, we're so excited to have you on this show. Thank you so much for doing it. Yeah, there was like I'm doing a hard pivot there because I brought up Ren and Stimpy and then the vibes got weird.
It got real dark real quick. Yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of like the show, so I mean, it's all it's understandable.
Yeah. But even Rocco's Modern Life, like, it wasn't until I was an adult, like, oh, he was a Loveline operator. Strange choice for a children's show.
It was very adult. It was very, very adult. I have to say, Rocco's Modern Life.
I didn't realize that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know that was his job either.
Yeah, he was like a Loveline operator.
Wow, they were really on one back then, huh? They did not care about they did not care about us.
Rocco's Modern Life was cool though, because they did have like this one, I think it was like a 2-parter episode where they talked about what it's like to like run a cartoon show, and it's like really funny when I was a kid, and then it was really funny like when I was working because it was fairly accurate.
Oh, that's awesome! I love that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the binary in society, as you were either a Disney kid and you were watching appropriate aged content that taught you like, useful human skills, or you were watching Rocco's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy, and now you're just traumatized and we're exposed to adult themes far too young.
I'm not gonna tell you which one I was, but I think we all know. We all know.
But Elizabeth, before we ask you how you're feeling, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
All right, so it's more COVID shit. I know no one. Well, here's the thing. More COVID shit. I was gonna say nobody cares because everyone talks about this all the time, but this is actually something that nobody talks about. There's been a lot of like, I don't think there's been a lot of like official studies about COVID. I just had COVID, Elizabeth, just so you know. Like, I just got better. I think my last day of quarantine it's been at least 5 days since then. So, I don't know if there's been a lot of like official studies done on this, but there's been just like people that have periods that talk about this, how it's really affected periods. And of course, no one gives a fuck because nobody even cares about people that have periods. No one ever. There's literally humankind knows nothing about the period. They're just like, this just happens and like, who cares? And like, Shut up. Stop whining about it. Like, you're not in pain. So then right after I got over COVID, I got my period, and it was literally the worst pain. It was like at least 2 days of excruciating, weird period pain. I had nonstop nausea for almost it's actually, I woke up and I still had it. Like all last night, I would wake up in the middle of the night, like on the verge of wanting to throw up. And I don't get nausea with my period. I had it all day yesterday, all day last night. I have it this morning. It's like, it feels fucking weird. It feels like my organs are shutting down. And it's like, and then like the day that I had really bad cramps and I was like really lethargic, which I think was 2 days ago, I was like, periods in general, even outside of COVID, are so interesting because they're so painful. And like I said, people don't really take it seriously because it's like a quote unquote woman's issue. But there have been times where I had period cramps and it feels very similar to labor. Like you're in that much pain.
Oh.
And you're just expected to go to fucking work. Yeah, well, because labor is the same feeling as your period because it's the same hormone that's moving and contracting. You're having contractions in your uterus.
I'm just evidence of how little society
Ew!
taught us. I'm like, what? You mean that's just happening every
Brian's
month?
Brian's like, I know you're talking about period, but wait. No, isn't that insane, Brian? Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah, it's not interesting. I feel awful. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, no, it's like you're having like basically contractions, and you know, people say when you give birth it's really painful and it's really hard to describe, but it literally just feels like a contraction, except it's all the way up in your lungs because your uterus is filled out until it fills your entire torso instead of just a fist size. Brian's losing his mind right now. So instead of having instead of having like a period pain like in your lower abdomen, you're having it in your entire torso, and that's what labor feels like. But
oh my god,
I'm saying that sometimes when you have your period, and if you've never had a child, you can rest assured that you're experiencing a pain that a lot of people go through during childbirth. Like that's how painful some periods are. And I just feel like people need to know more. People need to know what we're going through during that time, because you always hear this like, oh, stop whining, what are you, on your period? Bitch, I feel like I'm in active labor. Shut the fuck up. Can I get some time off work?
Wow. Youngmi, as a man,
yeah.
This is really illuminating. What you just described. I imagine it must feel a lot like when my favorite basketball team loses in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's like exactly like that, right?
It's not as painful as that, Brian. That's just excruciating pain. So it's not as bad as that, but yeah. So anyway, and then also with the COVID thing, like there's so many women. I mean, you see Twitter blew up about it. People are like, hey, has anyone noticed that their period is fucking weird? And we were like, yes. Is anyone gonna like look into this? No? Okay, whatever.
That is wild.
It's so interesting. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was gonna say I'm scared for like the scientific findings for these longitudinal studies that they're gonna do on COVID, because I wouldn't be surprised like 10 years from now there's gonna be like a Harvard Medical Journal like article about like COVID causes like debilitating neurological dysfunction like in after the age of 70. It's like, oh well, we're fucked.
Shit. Oh well, we're fucked. There's gonna be like weird. Some man. Yeah. Sorry.
It's really weird because I like related. I remember when I got the vaccine, like my period came like right away, like right after I got the vaccine. And yeah, not like, I mean, some women were talking about it, but in general, it seems like something that people didn't talk about, where it's like, why did that happen? Can somebody explain? Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No one talks about it because no one cares. No one cares. And I like also learned that, did you know that? I did not look into this, so I just saw it on the internet and then I believed it. But do you know when they do like drug trials, they only do them on men or something. Did you
What?
hear that?
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Because they need
What?
to like apparently. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why like
What are, can
there's
you
so- that's
cite-
why it
what are
took
your
s- yeah.
sources on this?
I saw it on the internet. No, but I think it's true. There was like an official like doctor or somebody who said it, and they were like, yeah, that's why there's all these like problems with medication for women, and that's also why it took forever for them to like, I guess, figure out. This isn't even. I don't think this is related. This is another. I'm not trying to tie this together. But do you remember when they found out that if you take the morning after pill and you weigh more than 150 pounds, it doesn't work?
Wait,
And
what?
they'd like never like, yeah.
Okay, this is the episode where Spotify is gonna put a label on our podcast for like, warning, like misinformation possible.
Pseudoscience, misinformation, fake news. No, those are two true things. Somebody else Google it, but I saw it on the internet.
Oh.
I'll look at it right now. Brian, how are you feeling? That's how I'm feeling. Misinformed. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling quite grounded these days, and but I wanted to touch on something that. So these past few weeks, I have been putting together I've been writing a lot for this upcoming deadline, and oftentimes when I have to fulfill writing deadlines, I immediately panic and start to feel very insecure because I'm just not very confident about my writing. And but this time around, with the encouragement of my wonderful girlfriend, I've been reaching out for help a lot more than I usually do, especially when it comes to my writing. I'm so insecure and I don't want to share it with anybody. And oftentimes with most of my creative endeavors, I just do it in solitude because I'm like, I don't need anyone. I'm going to lone wolf this. Like I'm just going to do it all on my own and I'm going to get it. And, this time I've been very proactive about collaborating with people and asking people for help and asking people for notes. And I don't know, people have been very receptive and very, very helpful. And it's just a really, really nice feeling that I have friends and colleagues who are willing to take the time to help me in this capacity. And it still feels a bit uncomfortable, but I'm feeling a lot of gratitude and feeling pretty grounded. Yeah. I don't know if you two can relate. I'm very I get really weirded out about asking for help, especially when it comes to creative projects.
Yeah, I do. Wait, so is it do you feel insecure about your writing and you don't want them to see it? Is that why? Or
that's
is
a part of
like,
it.
help?
That's a part of it. And then the other, that's the main reason is I don't want to share it. And then I feel like they are going to think I suck or perceive me negatively for it. But almost always after I receive these notes, the end product is so much better. I can see it transforming with each with each source of input that I'm receiving on my writing. And I look back and at the times that I've fulfilled deadlines and haven't asked for any help and I submit it, I'm like, there's just no chance that this is any good because I'm not getting any feedback on this. But
So
it
when
doesn't
you
come
when you
naturally
get
to
the
me.
feedback, when you get the feedback, how does that feel? Does that feel okay for you, or do you feel kind of you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel it's totally fine for me. Honestly, when it comes to constructive feedback and criticism, it doesn't yeah, it feels bad, but the net is so great that it doesn't bother me. It's just that initial push of reaching out to someone, and I feel like it's so I'm inconveniencing them. Because let's face it, I've received short films and scripts to review, and I say I'm gonna do it, and then it just evaporates out of my mind, and I forget to, and it's not I don't do it intentionally, but yeah, it's I don't know. I'm learning to embrace collaboration more and putting myself out there.
Oh, I'm proud of you. I also feel
Yeah, that's good.
Good job, Brian.
Oh, thank you.
I also feel like some people like doing that though. Like some people like that, like helping you edit, or there are people that actually enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, but I also think because it's we trained doing stand up, and stand up is so solitary,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Like compared to other forms of comedy, like sketch comedy or improv comedy, where it's fundamentally very collaborative, but stand up's like
Yeah.
it's just me and my thoughts and me on stage, and it's all me, baby.
Yeah.
That's so funny though. I think of it like I would assume that that would make you like in a way like more open to like showing people you're writing, because like to me like stand-up comedy you're so like in front of people. I don't know, you're like bearing your creativity on stage to people in a way that like to me I'm like that's terrifying. Like I don't know, I don't think I could ever do that, you know.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It is a weird. Yeah, it's a bit odd, because it's illogical. I don't know how to explain it. I think with my writing, it's I think my writing's more precious. With stand up, there is an understanding that you're allowed to fail in a way, and I think audiences understand that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like an exposure therapy thing. You just get used to bombing sometimes, and that's the nature. Obviously, like if you do a big show and you're doing your best jokes and you bomb, it does feel very bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Writing to me just feels so much more precious, because there's other variables involved in stand up, like maybe the writing's good but I wasn't performing it well, or I didn't address something strange that happened in the room that could have like dispelled the tension in the room. But with writing, it's like you tried your best on this and judge this just for the words that are printed on this paper.
Well, I'm glad that
So
you are reaching out for help.
Thank you. I am a 32-year-old man. I'm just realizing that collaboration is good. But Elizabeth, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good today. I mean, I'm a little jet lagged. I went on I went to this festival in Annecy, France that animation people have.
Wow.
Well, I mean, they
Whoa.
used to have it every year, but since like COVID, they haven't had it for like in person, I think for a while.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, like I don't know, it's a pretty chill week. Like some weeks have been less that than others, so I'm trying to just appreciate when it doesn't feel like a million bad things are happening.
That's amazing. Wow, an animation festival in
Thanks.
France?
Yeah, it's in Annecy, which is like it's kind of like I think like a touristy resort town because it's by this
Yeah.
like beautiful clean lake, and everything around there kind of reminds me of like Sound of Music. So it's like that kind of visual, you know. But it's also strange because you fly all the way out there and then you kind of run into the same people that I would like run into in Burbank here, which is like really really weird. Like, oh, there's that former coworker, there's that executive, or I
Yeah.
don't know. It's really strange.
Is it a pretty
That's so
litty time? Like, does it get pretty raucous? Like, do people like party and like let loose at
I
these
think some
festivals?
people do. It's like it's really like odd though because the type of alcohol that they're known for is like rosé wine. So, which like here, I mean, if somebody asks for a rosé, they can expect to get roasted. I feel like out here, so
Right.
it's like really weird to get used to like ordering that as like the thing to drink. I think like
So funny.
similar to Comic-Con, sometimes they have studio parties and stuff
Oh,
like
nice.
that can be raucous. My personal taste is now to not go to those things because I don't
Oh.
want to see everybody from work at a party really, but
Mm.
yeah.
Who gets like the most loose? Like what show? Like is it like the SpongeBob crew? I don't know. I'm just assuming there's all the people there. Woo,
I'm
like
trying
the
to
Simpsons
think, like,
people.
yeah, for Annecy, I would say it's like um a lot of like the commercial or smaller animation studio houses. Like there's this one studio called Passion Pictures that I think they usually have a big party. I think the animation studio Titmouse would sometimes have these like a party on a boat.
Nice.
You know, where it's like
That's awesome.
kind of loud. But this year, I don't know. I think the vibe was really weird. You know, it kind of usually depends on like what studio is doing the best at the time. We'll probably have like the glitziest party, but I'm not really sure who's doing the best right now.
Wow. So, you know, all right, rest in peace, Arthur. The show has ended. Now that Arthur isn't on TV anymore, Annecy France Festival, total dud. Very lame. Not a coincidence. I would love that, though, if it was like a PBS animated show that just partied like so fucking hard.
Woo, Arthur, woo! Imagine.
Arthur Crew
So
is here.
funny.
Time to do some ketamine
shit,
bumps,
Arthur
everyone.
Crew. Yeah.
They should all have like shirts with that fist meme on it. It's like Arthur's fist. You know?
Arthur has the best memes, I have to say. I don't know how that happened, but
Arthur and SpongeBob memes are undefeated.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Undefeated. Always making me laugh.
I know. Is it like, I guess you have no control over that. I mean, but is that a consideration for animated studios these days of like the memeability of a show?
I think for some people it is. I think definitely like as time went on, it was like more of a thing that was thought about. I think for me, it's like my interesting story about it is just that like on Adventure Time, there's a lot of memes that came out of it.
Right.
And I think like you don't, I mean, I wasn't really thinking about it when I'm like writing anything for an episode. You're kind of just trying to get through it. And there were like a couple things that I think turned into memes where I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine about how I think she said, oh yeah, one of my passwords is like based off of Adventure Time. And I think I was like, oh, is your password like whatever's 2009? And she was like, yeah, now I'm gonna have to go change my password. And I'm like, yeah, I'm responsible for that phrase in that particular episode. And it's just like I looked it up, and yeah, there's somebody that I think it's even wrong in the meme. It's like whatever, it's 2009, and I think I had just written it trying to think of like what would like a millennial girl have as her like password for getting into her kingdom.
Right.
That's so funny.
So yeah, it's strange to be like the origin of certain memes and then see it become something that people identified with somehow.
Right.
Wow. And there's like no way that people would know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even me, like,
Yeah.
like, I see it come up and I'm like, oh, you guys like that one.
Because of you,
Yeah.
Joe Biden has had to change the password to the nuclear codes.
Yeah,
like-
I hope so. I hope it was whatever's 2009 at some point.
It was. He's going to listen to this and change it. He's like, dang it, other people had the idea too? Dang.
Well, Elizabeth, based on your show, City of Ghosts, the first question we wanted to ask you is, do you have any personal do you have any personal ghost encounters?
Yeah, I feel like I've told this story too many times, so I'm going to try to tell it in like a different way. But like,
In a chill way.
Yeah, in an unrecognizable way, so I'll like perform it. But when I was little, like 6 years old or so, I had a great grandmother who had passed the previous year, and she had her birthday was on a leap year, and so this one evening, it was like nighttime, and I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I was really scared of doing that when I was little. I think because, like, honestly, I was scared of the loud noise the toilet makes when you flush it. So I was like going to the bathroom, and in the hallway I thought I saw like this foggy shape. And so I like yelled out to my parents, like, "Hey, there's a ghost out here! Somebody help me!" And somebody yelled back, like, "Just go to bed! Like, finish up and go to bed!" So I did that. And then the next morning, like, I came out, and I think my dad was like, "So you saw a ghost?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I thought I saw this thing in the hallway." And I guess he had gotten up earlier to go to the bathroom, and he said like, "Oh yeah, I saw the same thing," and then I was too scared to come out. So yeah, but
Wow.
like we talked about it, and I was like, "That's it." I mean, it's cool that he told me and he didn't just lie about it, but yeah. And then the after making City of Ghosts, or like a family friend who used to come to visit all the time said, "Oh yeah, I heard you talking about that story." And I totally remember like coming over to your house the day after to see your dad, and I looked at the like corner, and there was this, like, he had this camera set up facing like the corner of the room.
What?
And I asked him like, "What's that about?" And I guess like he had thought if it came back, he would have like a really discreet way of like capturing it on film without disturbing it with this camera, because he had some really like high speed film in there.
Right.
So it's just, I don't know, it's just like a really funny like circle of a story where like our family friend even remembers sort of like it happening.
That is very...
Wow.
That is creepy.
That's so funny that your dad saw the
but also
ghost and he
very
didn't want
funny.
to come and help you. He's like, never, nope,
Yeah.
I'm not, just go back to bed. You'll be fine. Later on, he's like, yeah, I saw the ghost too. That's why I didn't come out and help. I didn't
That
want to
feels
help
like
you. I was
such a
scared.
dad activity, though. Just like, yep, gonna just set up a camera here in the corner and catch this ghost. Don't mind me.
Won't come out to help
Wow.
you, but I'll set up a camera to take a picture of it.
Yeah, just to get
And you think it was
photographic
your great
evidence.
grandmother?
Yeah, because I think like the night that it happened, it was like her birthday, like a leap year.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh,
I see ghosts all the time. I've already
know,
told
young-
Brian. We've had an episode about it. I see them all the time.
That's so cool, or scary. I don't know. If you don't want to see them, then that's kind of. What do your ghosts look like?
I've had like, I see them so much that there's a whole lot of different things. A lot of times it looks like real people, and I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye, and it will look so real that I'll be like, oh, that was somebody, and then I'll go look and there won't be anybody, and then I'm like, oh my god, that was a ghost. It just looks like somebody, you know?
But like,
Yeah.
are the ghosts that
Yeah.
you see ever doing modern things, like maybe holding a selfie
No.
stick or something?
No, the scariest, this one was kind of scary, but it was in broad daylight. The scariest thing was this person was standing. I was in a Dwayne Reed, like in a pharmacy, and there's big sliding glass doors, and I saw like an old grandma standing in front of the glass door, and she was like looking in, and I was like, oh, the door's broken, and for some reason it's not opening for her. So I looked at her, and in the second I saw that she was like a little girl with like an old grandma face.
What?
And then like she disappeared, because so the ghost was standing in front of the glass door, and it wouldn't open for her because she was a fucking ghost, and she was looking in the glass to see like what it was. And I realized it was a ghost because she was old and young at the same time. Like, she had no age. She was like all of her ages at once because it was her spirit.
Oh my gosh. And she needed to go to Dwayne Reed to buy some moisturizer for her face.
She was like, why isn't this door opening? No, she was
is
looking so confused.
scary. Yeah.
She was looking so like looking in, like confused, you know? And
Oh,
I was
man.
like, oh, it's because the door, like in the, I was like about to tell the cashier, I was like, oh, the door's not working. There's a grandma out there. And then I realized it was a ghost. Like shit like that.
Ugh.
Wow.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies. But, you know, for your show, City of Ghosts, you recently won a Peabody Award, and that speaks for itself. Your show is critically acclaimed and widely loved. But
Thank you.
unfortunately, it's been canceled by Netflix. What the
Yeah,
hell?
how
Like, what is
what's
going
going
on
on? How?
on Netflix's end?
How?
Well, like I thought about that, like that question of like how to, how do I explain it? One thing that I think it's hard because it's always framed a certain way. So like on the surface, it looks like they decided to not make any more. You're totally canceled. But I think like at the very beginning, like when we started making the show, and this is the same for I think most of their shows and a lot of animated shows in general, sometimes they decide like at the beginning, we're going to make 2 seasons of that show from the
Right.
beginning. So they'll release 1 season, and then when the second season comes out, it seems as if like, oh, they got greenlit for a second season, so they made another one. But it's usually like you already knew that at the beginning, and then maybe if after that second season, they won't get a renewal, so it'll seem like they were canceled after 2 seasons, but
Right,
they were really
right.
only canceled after their first thing. So
Right.
that's one thing. I think like, yeah, and I think so for like all the shows that started around the same time as mine, where people started making them around the same time as me, that was sort of built in. Like I didn't ever really think of it as like this is getting canceled. It was more like, oh, they're not renewing this, and they're also not renewing those other ones, but people don't really see it that way because they don't know that at the beginning of that show they just got greenlit for more stuff than I did.
Right.
So that part of it is like, okay, well, practically speaking, it still sucks, but we're not making more. I forget what the other part of it I was gonna talk about was, but yeah, and I think like during the process of making it, just like I mean I was just trying to get the show done, so I wasn't paying too much attention to like the vibe of the studio and what they were after and all that anymore, because like you've already said you want me to make this, so I'm going to finish it and try to cancel out the noise. But there definitely was this sense that like when I came in there was sort of this like blue sky approach to it, like let's make your dream show. Let's make a new kind of studio that operates a different way. All of these things that were really appealing to me. But I think like Netflix as a place, it's like they're constantly changing what they want to do because they're trying to, like, I mean, at their heart, they're a tech company. So I feel like they're always operating that way, where like tech companies, there's just like, I mean, in my opinion, there's a lot of turnover and like people and like the way the place is run, and it's no different for Netflix. So I think like in the middle of me making that show there was like this shift happening to, I don't know if this way of making shows in general is going to be successful or what we want from having animation made through Netflix. So I think once you get to the point where like my show's out and they're deciding what to do with it, I feel like they already kind of decided. It's just like nobody knew my show existed before that, so there wouldn't be a way for them to explain like, oh well, we decided while she was working on that we actually just wanted a lot more viewers. We don't necessarily need like this like niche category of something. We're really just looking for how can we get the most eyeballs onto our platform. And like other things kind of show that, especially on their live action side. You see the things that like blew up and then got another thing going for it, and it's stuff that just like kind of was like viral essentially.
Oh, that's so frustrating though, because eyeballs,
Continue, I'll be right back.
like eyeballs is not a fair assessment for the value of a piece of art. I think it flattens creativity, and it's overall just terrible for for art in general.
Yeah. And like this is like a like a separate thing, but one of the tough things for me was like during everything that happened like pandemic, all of that, there was so much push at the beginning of it for like, this is the time where we change the way we work, or we're going to be super diverse and we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to donate to all these things.
Right.
But then like, I mean, I remember talking about this with a friend, like, what do you do if like the eyeball, so like, you know, it's kind of like in the news that one of the popular things on Netflix was like Boss Baby or like Coco Melon or like things like that, you know, and
Sure.
Jurassic Park, which already sort of had a following. But with the first two, the sad question is like, okay, so if you get the most eyeballs on these shows that are about like these glistening blonde babies, is that all you're gonna make, or are you still gonna make like your kind of like artsy diverse content? And
Right.
I feel like we got the answer. You know, it's like, well, we're gonna make the thing that like a ton of people
The eyeballs
watch.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think you bring up a very interesting point there, because there is, you know, companies were like, well, now we're gonna have this push for diversity, especially in 2020 after all the riots and the protests. Sorry, not rights. But then they're at their heart, they're corporations and they're companies, and they want to make money, and to do the social work to get to the bottom of why there are more eyeballs on shows that feature white characters or white people. That is going to take a lot of work that we have to do as a society, that is not going to be done by corporations looking to make the next dime. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to just be like, we can't fix the problem when we get to the rotten fruit. We have to get to the root of it, and Netflix isn't going to fucking do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're but also I really like how you framed Netflix as a tech company, because I feel like I forgot that. But obviously it is, and it's run by tech people.
It's one of the FANG companies, you know. Facebook, Apple,
I understand
Netflix,
that.
Google,
No, I understand that, Brian. But I'm like, because they're so much like, we're an entertainment, we're like Hollywood, we're like that kind of entity, that I forget that the people that run it are just fucking tech nerds that don't have friends.
Yeah.
They don't know what kind of movies you want to watch. and that makes sense. Like, that's why, like, recently with all the shit that they're trying to do, and people are like, why are they doing this? Like, they don't know. They're like losing so many. I'm like, oh, because they're like trying to shake it up in like a tech way, I think.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, overall, I feel like as a society, we just need to like reevaluate art and like what its impact is. And when we have these like tech companies doing that, at the end of the day, it's just like dollar signs and eyeballs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love a Mission Impossible. I love Jurassic Park. Like, it's nice to just shut your brain off and enjoy some explosions, and that has its value. But if you
Brian loves Boss Baby.
Right. But like over time, you know, Youngmi and I were talking about this before we started recording. Like, if you look at, you know, the film, like if you look at someone like Wong Kar-wai, like, I'm sure his films didn't do that great by Netflix's standards. Like, if it were streaming or if it were at playing at a box office, like by that standard, he wouldn't get funding for another film. But like 20 years after, 30 years after these films have been released, people are still talking about the cultural influence and the impact like his films have made to directing and cinematography. And I think it's just a bit unfair. And I think Netflix does have a problem of prematurely not renewing shows, because sometimes like things, you get cult classics that way. Like, it takes a little bit of time for word of mouth to spread. And if you're canceling something after a season, like, you don't even let something, and especially with the show like City of Ghosts, like it won a Peabody Award. That's like the highest accolade in journalism. So you have proof. You have the validate. Like, you have proof that this is a great show.
Yeah, I think like I had just wished that, and this also speaks to the fact that they're a corporation and they technically don't owe this to anybody. But I think my feeling was like, I value it when a business can admit, like, we're running this like a business, and the reason we don't want to make more of your shows because like we really just want a lot of people watching it, and these things are getting that, and like like we realize it's like got critical acclaim, but like that's not important to us now. It's fine actually for me to hear a corporation say that, because you're not sort of like making it like, well, you lost, like you didn't do well enough to belong on our, or to do more of that on our service or on our platform. But instead I feel like, similar to a lot of other tech companies, there's like a slight cult mentality to the way that they operate. Like it's sort of just like convincing people that you're doing something for a certain reason, when it's really like you're still a tech company business, you know, you're not like a friend.
Yes, I love that.
That's
such a huge problem with tech people, because there is this mentality that they're like, we are like gentle, creative, sort of like imaginative people progressing humankind. It's like, no, you're just a fucking shitty corporation like McDonald's. Like, and they're like playing ping pong in their like, you know, break room. Like, we're gonna help humankind, right, Kyle? What are we gonna do today to help humans? And it's like, shut the fuck up. You're just trying to buy your next yacht, bro. Like, you don't give a fuck about human. Like, it's like the I hate all. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's just like, just be honest with me. You don't care about art. You don't know what art is. You're a fucking tech nerd. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
You watch Boss Baby and you're in your 30s. Shut up.
But it is scary to think like the direction that we're headed in, and for the entertainment industry at large, because the way all of these studios or these companies get funding is through advertising dollars, which is directly related to eyeballs. And the way it's going, like in 10 years from now, is everything's just going to be what, like a YouTube video then?
Tiger
like
King.
every movie is going to be a YouTube star. Every actor is going to be like a TikTok star. Or if you're not, then you're just like a nepotism, like someone who comes from like a family royalty in Hollywood. But it's just so gross. It doesn't
I just
bode
imagined
well.
like, I imagined like every show, when you say like it's all gonna be TikTok stars, like, and this is probably like old TikTok, but like, is every show gonna be somebody like pointing at words and dancing and teaching me about something?
Yeah.
Right.
Dun,
Right.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's gonna be that. Yeah.
Like you see it happening on YouTube, because YouTube, like it's autonomous, like it is somewhat like meritocratic in a way, but all YouTubers, their thumbnail is always that like cringy face where their mouth is open. It's like, and like there's so many like colors on it.
Yeah.
They don't do that like from a like creatively. I don't think that's what sparks joy for them. They do that because for whatever reason, that's just what gets a lot of views. And if this is happening like at the level of Netflix, is every show just gonna look the same? Is everything just gonna be like a Stranger Things spin-off? Like,
Also,
fuck this.
also, I think also it's like, I don't want to like feel like I'm pointing fingers at the tech company, because all they do is give us what gets clicks, and we're the ones that are clicking. And what I've found I think it's been probably almost 10 years now since I've used Netflix. I don't know when they came out. Is my brain is so different now. When it first came out, it was when they were sending the DVDs, and I was getting like rare Lars von Trier made for TV, but like he made during film school. Like I was getting those shipped to my house, and I was like, this is amazing. And I was sitting down and fucking watching the 3-hour black and white, like nothing's happening movie. Now I'm like clicking through everything, watching 5 seconds, and being like, and like I can't watch anything. And it's like so I can't sit here and be like, it's the stupid shitty tech guy playing ping pong. It's my brain that's also been broken by his company that's fueling this kind of behavior. You know, it's just like all of us fell into this delicious like dopamine click trap, and now we can't watch anything except Boss Baby. Sorry, I'm gonna keep dragging that. I can't believe people like Boss Baby. It's so It's so demented. Such a weird. It's weird, and it's weird that he's blonde and blue-eyed in it. I feel like it was a weird choice.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
For sure. I mean, if anybody's gonna be a boss, it's probably gonna be the blonde, blue-eyed baby.
The voice is Alec Baldwin. I think it's very unsettling. It's very unsettling, that character.
Elizabeth, what do you think children get that adults don't? And on the flip side, if there's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, what would it be?
To the first question, honestly, they get so much. Like they understand a lot, to the point where I think like it can be embarrassing for adults. Like,
Huh.
I don't know. So many kids are just so like super honest about whatever is presented to them, like sometimes loudly. I just say that because sometimes, you'll I have two kids. One of them's 5 and one of them is 8, and like
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
it's something where like if you walk into a situation that's weird, like your kid will notice it right away and probably say something very loudly about or question it, like why is that,
Yeah.
what are we supposed to do, what. And I think like it's this thing that when kind of like, I don't know how to put it, but I guess like when you have adults that are trying to hide certain things about certain aspects of stuff, like whether it be
Right.
like history, whether it be sort of like how you feel about a certain person, it's really hard
Mm.
to hide that in front of children because they're usually pretty perceptive about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like they also just I like they're funny in this way that's like unmatchable. I don't know, like there's just ways that like kids will
Yeah.
describe things or that they'll make sense out of something that like it'll take me a minute to figure out what one of my kids is talking about, but then when I realize what they're trying to explain that way, it's like it's hilarious in this way that like a grown-up would never be like that.
Yeah.
um what was the second question? I'm sorry. Oh, advice for younger me. I don't know. I think about that a lot. I mean, one thing would just be like, hey, later in your life, there's going to be this crazy pandemic where people have to stay home and load up on toilet paper. And you're going to think things will change, but they won't change as much as you think they should have for the amount of shit that people just went through. So that's probably the number one thing that's in my brain. That's what I would tell myself.
Wow.
I
Like
mean,
that's so
the
real.
the the less like current events thing is just probably I would say just encourage my younger self in the probably the same way that I'm trying to encourage my older self, which is like
Mm.
try not to feel so embarrassed about shit that you do that's like um I don't know, that maybe in some way feels embarrassing because nobody around you really cares. They kind of are only really focused on themselves and their place and stuff. So like even
Right.
if you do that thing, don't hold on to that embarrassment for so long because nobody gave a crap that you were doing that. Like you do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
That reminds me of don't kill the cringy part of yourself. Kill the part that cringes.
Yeah.
I'm literally quoting memes. I'm like, that's who I am now. That's where I get all my information.
5 second
great
clips
advice,
and
though.
memes, baby.
My brain
Has,
is broken. My
has
brain is
Minos
broken.
has Mino said anything that's like broken your brain? As it like
No,
when he's
Mino is
described
so
something?
funny.
Mm.
Well, when you were saying that, Elizabeth, I'm like, sometimes I'll just like talk to him and I'll be like, everything he says is so funny and interesting. And like, yeah, and he'll like ask me about stuff. But yeah, especially I think that the idea that children don't know things or don't understand things is so ridiculous. Like there are ways that you can explain basically anything in the world to a child. And I think that people want to think that they won't understand, but like, like really hard things like racism, people are like, you can't explain that to a child. They can very well understand, and they have eyes, they're seeing the same world that we're seeing. And I think it's just a cop out because the adults don't want to talk about it, but the kids can already see it, so you have to talk to them about it or else they don't have any guidance. But I think that's a great point. I love that.
Yeah, it's really hard to frame difficult things. Like I know even when it's so it's like so my own fault that this happened, but like with one of the City of Ghosts episodes where we go into like internment camps, or we
Wow.
talk about internment camps. Uh, at some point, I was showing that episode to my
Yeah.
kids, and I think I was like, to my son, like, hey, some of your relatives had to do that. They had to go to camp.
Yeah.
And I think it was because he laughed at something where maybe it was just like, oh, like I think Zelda says like, oh, like summer camp. And then he kind of laughed and I was like, it's not funny. And then I was like, I should explain what it is. And he goes, well, what is that? What do you mean? What happened? And I said, it's like, did my husband is white. And he was like, did Dada's family have to go there? And I'm like, no. And I was like, having a hard time summing up how to explain that, because like honestly you start realizing it doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to explain this sad thing that shouldn't have happened, but you can't just kind of say like it shouldn't have happened. You have to say like, oh, people put Japanese people into these camps because they thought we were gonna do bad things when it's not us, I don't know. So it was really hard to put into words like how to sum that up. And especially I think if you were like if you weren't of the mindset that was a wrong thing to do, it probably would be even harder to explain that to a kid. Sorry,
It's
I brought
so
the
rough.
vibe. I brought that vibe so much
The
down.
vibe is
not at all.
6 feet under. Vibe is catastrophic.
I'm just
Explaining-
imagining. I'm just imagining your son. I don't know, maybe 10 years from now when he's in high school and he's with his friends and he's like, "Hey, did your like moms ever give you the talk?" And they're like, "No." What do you mean? He's like, "No, I mean like the talk where they explain what internment camps are." They're
My
like,
grandfather
"What?"
went to internment. You know what's been helpful? Okay, this is me giving parenting advice, which I hate doing because I'm a failure. But like, this is what's been really helpful for me. When there's something going on, I try to tie it to behavior, like bad, quote unquote, bad things that happens at their level, children's level, and there's always an equivalent. Like I was trying to explain Donald Trump because like when he was president, he picked up from people that they all hated him, and he was like, why? So it was very easy to explain Trump to like a 5-year-old, by the way. It was like, that kid in the playground that like nobody likes, but it's because his parents don't like him because he sucks. It's like that guy became the president. Like it was, I forgot what I said. It was something like that. And he's like, that feeling you get when other kids are mean to you. Like imagine you grow up and that's who you like. That's everyone treated you like that forever. It's like something like that,
What you just said reminds me of a Saturday Night Live sketch written by Julio Torres, and it's called Through Donald's Eyes, and it's like the perspective of the world through Donald Trump's eyes, but he has like the world view of a 5-year-old. So he wakes up and everyone he speaks to, they're like, Trump, 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 like, you are good, the best, Trump. And he's like navigating the White House where everyone's just like inflating his ego like a 5-year-old. That's really great. Highly recommend.
Very easy to explain Trump to a 5-year-old because they're surrounded by little Trumps.
Yeah.
They're like, I have someone just like that in my class. And his dad is rich. He has the best toys. It's like, yep. There you go.
So we're going to shift into the second half. Well, not even the second half. We still haven't figured out a good name that sticks with the podcast yet, but we're going to hit you with some more questions. Part two of the podcast. Number 1, Elizabeth, what is something you're loving right now?
Since I'm only thinking of like TV shows at the moment, I really liked Severance, the TV show. I don't watch a whole lot of stuff, but that I really identified with a lot about what's going on in that particular show. I don't know. Yeah, I'll stick with that. What other kinds of stuff are you guys loving?
What are you loving, Brian?
I am loving. Okay, so Severance. I've seen the first 2 episodes of it with my girlfriend, but then we usually will watch, any TV late at night before bed. But Severance it requires so much concentration, and I have to be in a particular mood. So we would always be like, "Do you want to watch Severance?" I'm like, I don't know if I'm like in the mood to concentrate for an entire hour, and it's been like 3 months since we've seen the second episode, so definitely have to revisit it. Right now I am loving, gosh, I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I've been watching this reality TV show. I am part of the problem. I've been watching this reality TV show called The Ultimatum on Netflix, and is the most goddamn toxic television show. It's like the Stanford prison experiment on steroids, and completely mindless, not learning a single I'm learning nothing new. I'm killing brain cells watching it, but highly entertaining. So I've been loving that right now.
I saw 2 episodes, but I couldn't get into it. I got scared.
What about you, Youngmi? What are you loving?
I don't know. I haven't been doing shit. I've been doing nothing with my brain. I've not been reading, not been watching anything. I've just tried to work and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I've just been watching stuff with Mino, and
Nice.
I have to say a lot of the kids shows, like I said, are so boring. Like, they're not just boring for me, they're boring for him. And I'm like, I don't know how people can somehow make a good show and sometimes they're bad. I don't know. I don't know how people think in the way of a child, you know? That's interesting to me.
Conversely, what is something you're hating right now?
I mean, honestly, kind of social media I'm hating, because it's just a barrage of stuff all the time. Barrage of feelings. Yeah, I guess just hating this nonstop kind of chaotic situation that it feels like we're in, where the news cycle. I guess I'll just sum it up with that.
Yeah.
I'm hating the news cycle. It's really hard to do anything. I don't know, to not just kind of lay there. Yeah, but trying to stay less informed. I guess make myself less informed.
Nice. I think that's a good goal for all of it. Let's just shut off our brains.
I get caught up in it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we head into our next question, listeners, if you want to hear what Elizabeth is ashamed of, you're going to have to subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. This is where our guests get very real and very juicy, but also this is where, if you want to get to the meat of our podcast and learn something, subscribe to Patreon, just jump to these episodes. Elizabeth, what is something that you're ashamed of?
I'm so scared about that intro, because what if this is not juicy at all? In fact, I don't think it is very juicy. The thing that
Perfect.
I'm ashamed of.
I'm gonna cut right there. I'm gonna cut right there, and that's gonna be just a great cliffhanger that'll entice people to subscribe. Well, I'm glad I'm glad no stone left unturned. I'm glad that we got some good furry talk in there. Elizabeth, I think we're running out of time here, but before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests this one last question, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
I'm really proud of, honestly, I'm really proud of City of Ghosts. I didn't have, and I think my short before that too, Welcome to My Life, that was about my brother, where I feel like I've managed to sort of hone in on this style of making stuff that's really personal to me. And in the end of it, I think I was most proud that the crew that was with me that worked on my show, they seemed to all have a good time doing it, and they wanted to keep doing it. So I feel proud that I was able to create a show that was meaningful, but then also I don't know, just that people wanted to keep working with me after it. Because I think my fear was that, what if I'm one of those just egomaniacal creator people that is really unpleasant to work with? Because there's a lot of those. I mean, there's a lot of people like that out there where I think, if you see too much of that, you're kind of like, I don't ever want to be like that. So you get really careful about trying to not emulate the terrible stuff.
I think that's like the narcissist thing, where if that thought has ever crossed your mind, that means that you are not that. Like if you ever have thought that you are a narcissist, you are not a narcissist. Like you think you're
They're so terrible to deal with, though, right? So like I think it's always just that like overwhelming feeling of like, good God, like that person has no concept that that's how terrible it is. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's never crossed their minds that they are a horrible person, and that's why they're a horrible person.
Yeah.
So, can I just say one thing? Yeah, I'm so happy about the show, and congrats on your Peabody. My God.
Thank you.
What a feat.
Thank you so
much. And who cares about the stupid tech nerds at Netflix? But I just want to say I did look it up. The thing that I was talking about in the beginning of the episode. The trials until a lot of the drug trials reference trials that were done before 1993, and before then it wasn't like forced or whatever that they have to do it on women too. So they did it mostly on men. And this article talks about Ambien because they never tested it on women and all the harmful effects it has, because they're giving them a dose that's meant for somebody that's, has a slightly different biological like makeup. So I was right. I told you. No one cares about women.
The information's 30 years dated, but you were correct.
No, because they're still
I know,
drugs still like they're still referencing those trials that were done 30 years ago.
Right. Well, Elizabeth, thank you for, spending the time with us on this podcast and sharing your story. And, I'm very excited to see what you have cooking up next. But for our listeners, where can they find you and your work online?
So on Twitter, I'm like at Kikutown, and then on Instagram, I'm at OtterSnaps, and I usually post there regularly when things are going on. I have a website too, but I don't update it as hardly ever. So I think like just keeping an ear out for the things that I'm working on. My next project that is going to be released is a short about Mongolian barbecue in the Burbank Mall that I was really interested in.
Awesome.
So
nice.
Yeah, so I went and like interviewed the people that work there and found out about like how they started and stuff, because I used to eat there way too often when I worked nearby.
Nice.
But beyond that, you'll probably just my work is pretty recognizable now. Like there's a lot of people who kind of figure out that I've worked on something or made something based off of the vibe of it.
Amazing.
The look.
The vibe. You have that signature, which is that's a feat in and of itself.
Thank you.
Technically, what we're all striving for as artists. Youngmi, where can our listeners find you online?
On social media, YM Mayer, and then Youngmi Mayer on TikTok. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me online at It's Brian Park, and follow our podcast online at Feeling Asian Podcast on all social media. And once again, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. And I think that's it, everyone. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.